For 22 years, the old Arsenal artillery has lain silent and dormant, gathering dust, gathering doubt, but this season has lit the fuse. After 22 years of gloom, it's about to go boom! The Arsenal cannon fires again! 22 years of wait. Arsenal roar like it's 2004. It's about fires again. It's about to go boom, 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 boom. The Arsenal cannon. Boom, boom, boom. Arsenal roar like 2004.
This is Arsecast Extra.
Hello. That tells you something about my voice. Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra. As always, with James from Gunnerblog. James, goodly morning to you.
Goodly morning, man. How you doing?
I am delighted and exhausted, I think, in equal measure, I have to say. Being brutally honest, I genuinely am. I'm both delighted beyond words and exhausted to the point where I'd like to just go, you know, and sometimes in those science fiction movies where they put you in like robes and you go into this white room and there's just sort of nothing anywhere, just kind of light and no noise, and it looks relaxing and quiet, but that's probably before they probe you in a very significant way. So I could be getting this all mixed up. I'm very good, essentially, is what I'm saying. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm fatigued as well. It was a big day yesterday.
Yeah.
A big hot day. So that took it out of me, but it was all worth it. It was a great day. Fantastic day.
Oh,
yeah, and just amazing. I would go into that big room, but I wouldn't want just a white light and nothing. I would just have replays of Arsenal's trophy celebrations, you know, projected at me over and over again.
You know what? I was trying to think about this because, you know, we won the title before in 2004, and we've all waited. And I'm trying to remember. I was trying to remember yesterday. What was it like then watching it? Did it feel like too much? And when I say too much, I kind of mean there was just so much going on that I could not sort of keep up with it all. I felt like, despite the fact I was sitting there watching it, I felt like I was missing stuff and missing so much. And the cameras would go here, cameras would go there. And you're looking at this player, that player, the manager, the fans, all of it. And it was just kind of a bit overwhelming or something. I don't quite know. Does that connect? I mean, your experience was a little bit different, obviously, because you were there and you were working. But it just still feels like I need to rewatch this. We need to do like a Arsenal Vision rewatch of the celebrations, tactical breakdown of the way the trophy was lifted, all that kind of stuff.
Please don't give my editors ideas, Andrew. But it was surreal and kind of super real. And whether it's because we live in a kind of an AI era, I don't know. But there was something about the image of Martin Odegaard lifting that trophy, or Mikel Arteta in his Arsenal shirt holding that trophy. That I felt, am I watching a cutscene from a FIFA game here? Do you know what I mean? Like I couldn't quite believe it. And I think it is just the waiting for so long that it is hard to believe it's finally here.
Yeah.
She's here and she's beautiful.
Oh God, she is. She is. It's been an amazing few days, hasn't it? Because obviously we talked on Wednesday after Tuesday, which was when the title was secured by virtue of Manchester City dropping points. But then yesterday was obviously its own very special thing at Selhurst Park, away from home. A quirk of the scheduling, I guess, that we didn't get to enjoy the trophy lift at the Emirates, and to sort of, I don't know if this is the right way of putting it, but to kind of christen that stadium with a title. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, I'm not being picky or anything. I'm, happy for us to get the trophy wherever we get it once we get it,
Well, what's nice about winning it away from home is that I think there is then that much more significance to kind of bringing it home. And, we've got a parade, whatever happens in Budapest on the 31st. And I think that will kind of elevate that event to this idea that that's the first time we're going to see the trophy on home turf.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
2 weeks of partying, basically, Andrew. That's the thing.
That's part of why I'm exhausted as well. It's not just the season. It's not just what we've been through since like August the 15th, whatever it was, when we kicked off against Manchester United. I mean, it's 290 odd days of stress and pressure and tension and anguish and celebration and hope and optimism and pessimism, and this sort of cocktail of every possible emotion and every possible feeling that you can have inside as a football fan. It's not just that. It is the fact that, it's been a bit of a party. It has been a bit of a party. And, some drinks were had, and I'm sure there's some heavy heads this morning, but in the best possible way.
Quite, Andrew. And in fact, speaking of 22 years of sorrow and anguish and pain, I fear I may have accidentally unleashed that on our manager during his post-game duties last night.
Please explain for anybody who hasn't yet seen the clip, which is at the very end of the post-game press conference, which you can go to on YouTube. I think it's Haters TV. If you look for their channel, you'll see it, but it's right at the end. Give us the lowdown from your perspective.
Well, Mikel came in, and he was out on the pitch for quite a long time. It's probably the longest we've ever had to wait for a press conference, and I almost felt bad him having to do it. I mean, unfortunately, it is contractual, but you kind of had to drag him away from the celebrations to go and do a press conference, and he's reflecting on the journey, the day. And then at the end of the press conference, he says sort of, see you next week, see you in Budapest. And having just lifted the Premier League title, there's a few handshakes for the journalists, and a kind of congratulations moment.
Thank you for your service to our title win, you yes, gentlemen of the Fourth Estate.
I don't know if he considers it service or not, to be honest. I suspect not. But I was slightly overcome, obviously, because it was quite an emotional day. And as you say, it's 22 years of anticipation and wanting and waiting, and at least 6 years of trying to get a straight answer out of Mikel about injury news. So somehow all of that was channeled into my greeting to Mikel, where I kind of dapped him into the next century and slapped him on the back so hard that it kind of rang through the press room. I mean, it was mortifying, actually. It was such a loud noise. There was so much feeling in that embrace. And obviously, people kind of slightly were taken aback. And Mikel jokingly was kind of like, "Oh, you broke my back," which I was obviously horrified. So then he came back round and sort of gave me another opportunity to hug him in a more tender fashion. And I just did exactly the same thing again. Just slapped hands, slapped him on the back, and off he limped back into the dressing room.
For goodness sake, you the father of a toddler, you should have picked him up in your arms and cradled him. Comforted him.
He'd already been manhandled by his players, tossing him up in the air. So He's a strong guy. I think he'll be okay. But
yeah, thank God it was.
I don't think I'll ever quite live it down. Sadly,
thank God it was David Raya underneath him and not Kepa, I guess.
That's why they kept their gloves on. Of course,
yeah. They did.
Celebrations. They needed the grip.
They really did chuck him quite high. At one point, I was like, "Uh oh."
Yeah.
I've seen this go wrong before. It's like one of those fail army videos. It's like, hey, everyone's celebrating. It's like, don't. Uh-oh. Amazing scenes. And listen, I'm sure if you were to ask Mikel Arteta, would he, the start of the season, have endured a very hard slap on the back from a journalist in return for winning the title?
A lovely souvenir from the day.
He's going to get it tattooed. Just your palm on the back of Mikel Arteta. Yeah.
It was an emotional day for everyone, I suppose, I should say. And do you know what was really cool, actually, is that although Crystal Palace is a sort of a deeply inconvenient place to lift a trophy, in theory, only 3,000 Arsenal fans in there. In reality, very many more. But where we were, the sort of makeup of the ground is such that when you walk from the kind of press room through to the stands to take your seat, you kind of have to pass outside, just past the away dressing room. So it meant that we kind of had access to the sort of area just outside the dressing room throughout the day, which meant that during the second half, I sort of nipped out and I could see them building the podium out there, that says Champions 25-26 on it, and putting that together. They had about 20 guys whose job was to put that together and then carry it out onto the pitch. And similarly, like after the game, I saw, Josh and Stan Kroenke being escorted down by security and led into the dressing room. And when the players all emerged back in their red shirts, Ricardo Calafiori was kind of the first out, and he was just chanting, Arsenal, Arsenal, Arsenal. It was great. So I had a sort of a really good view in that period where the TV pictures were not really showing anything because Arsenal had gone back to the dressing room. I was able to kind of spy on them a little bit and see the celebrations begin.
Well, you had more to work with than we did sitting at home watching on television, because what we got was obviously the end of the Spurs game, which nobody really wanted to see. It was the only bit of drama on the day. Potentially they could have gone down, but despite the fact West Ham won, Everton are absolute wankers. So they remain safe. So there was a lot of like, oh, look how happy Spurs are. And I was like, I really don't give a fuck about that. And I was like, oh, look how sad West Ham are. And I was like, I really don't give a fuck about that. And then there was like, here's an ad break. And I'm like, I don't want to buy Yoplait yogurts or a fucking Opel car or whatever. I don't care. They had about 400 ad breaks. And I get it. They were waiting for Crystal Palace to do their sort of end of season lap of appreciation stuff, right? Which they're more than entitled to do at their home ground. They've got a European final on Wednesday. Oliver Glasner is leaving after that game. So there's a lot going on from a Palace perspective. But it did feel deeply frustrating as an Arsenal fan, recognizing that, we have waited a long time for the title. What's another 30, 40 minutes really in the grand scheme of things? But it was a bit underwhelming in that period where it was just like, just can't, I can't, I felt like almost the vibe was being brought down, but I understand at the same time that that's just kind of had to go from a procedural point of view.
No, and it was quite funny because Steve Parish, the Palace chairman, was trying to hand out various end of season awards, and he was kind of pleading with the Arsenal fans over in one corner of the ground for quiet. He even said, let's see if this works. Congratulations, Arsenal, on winning the Premier League. And it backfired massively just because they got louder and louder and louder to the point where they were sort of drowning out his attempts to award Palace's goal of the season. It was a slightly odd thing. And I think by the time Martin Odegaard actually got his hands on the trophy, I think it was about 7:00 at night. So, yeah, it was a long wait. But I suppose when you've waited 22 years, what's another hour?
Yeah. what's another hour? I mean, do we need to talk about the game at all? Is it?
I mean, I suppose there's a few kind of points of interest, and maybe a couple of things that might relate to the Champions League in terms of the fact that we were able to give people a rest. I mean, I think that could be hugely valuable to us, couldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, you don't need to play all the big boys when you've got a Champions League final next weekend. So there was a start for Christian Norgard, Martin Zubamendi at right back, Max Dowman in there, Gabriel Jesus captaining the team and starting up front. Probably because this summer he's going to leave the club, right? And this was a nod to a player who did promise quite a lot when he came in first and really did have a positive impact. Obviously, the injuries over the years have not helped him, but I think it was nice to see that on the final day, he did get that start up front, did wear the armband, did get some chances to score, and eventually did put one in the back of the net because he must have been at some point in that first half going, fuck. Really could have made my mark in this game, but it didn't quite happen.
Yeah, and actually, I think you saw that in one moment where he went through on goal and probably should have squared it for Martinelli, but took the shot on because I think he was playing with that intention of maybe this could be my last appearance, and I definitely want to mark it with a goal. And I was glad he did. I mean, it struck me as kind of a full circle moment in a way because our first title challenge, really, of the four, began at this stadium with Gabriel Jesus making his Premier League debut for Arsenal in 2022.
Well remembered.
We went there on the Friday night. I don't know if you recall.
Bukayo Saka scored, didn't he, towards the end? Was it 2-0 win?
2-0 win. So it was Gabriel Jesus' debut. Zinchenko made his debut, and we saw kind of the start of the inverted left back, and William Saliba made his Premier League debut there. So that was the first time we saw him partnered with Gabriel. And I think a lot of obviously the team's evolved a lot since then, but I think that was really when we started competing for this title, when some of the foundational principles of the team were established. So to go back there and lift the trophy there on the final day, and perhaps Gabriel Jesus' final appearance, there was a neat symmetry about that.
Right. Well remembered. I hadn't quite made that connection. Gabriel Martinelli actually with the opening goal, and it was a Mark Gahey own goal on 85 minutes, which I think was forced by Bukayo Saka. I think
that's right, wasn't it? He went on the outside, as I recall, But I was pleased for Jesus to score. He probably should have scored more than one. The one he scored, I think the keeper will be disappointed, really, to be beaten at his near post quite straightforwardly, but
probably nice build up though. I think it's a nice little flick from Max Dowman. Martinelli took it on well, laid it off for Jesus, near post finish. I think keeper there is probably like, oh fuck.
But I mean, Max Dowman broke another record by starting, youngest Premier League start, I believe.
Right. They said that he some guy called Jose Baxter. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, Everton.
For Everton, he was the previous youngest, I think.
Yeah, Everton have got a real habit of this because obviously they had Rooney, James Vaughan.
Barkley, was he a really early one?
That Dowman beat against Everton. And then, Jose Baxter. I don't know this. So they chase these records a bit.
Yeah. Anyway.
But, he's had quite the week, Max, because obviously he found himself youngest Premier League champion on Tuesday in a nightclub that night. GCSEs that forced him to miss training.
Well, it's good to get your exams. Education is important. If it doesn't work out in the old football, you got to have yourself a trade. Something to fall back on there, Max. So that's concentrate on your exams.
I think Max is going to be okay.
You
but
think?
Let's see.
Okay, all right. Well, just in case, do an apprenticeship maybe, something like that. That's
true.
the kind of shit my dad used to say to me all the time. Jeez.
It's the Mertesacker philosophy, right? But and then starting a Premier League game on Sunday, and I didn't think he was particularly eye-catching, but I think it was a lovely touch in the build-up to the goal, and the fact that he's even able to play in a game like this and to receive the ball under pressure from players who are virtually twice his age is really something.
Yeah, he's thinking about his history exam tomorrow, and even amid that, he can concentrate on the game itself. I mean, I think, it is one of those games where you could see that Palace we're not really that interested in this one. We're going through the motions, now that there's no accusations could be made about, well, Palace have just bottled it or whatever it might be, or they've prioritized their European final, rather, I should say, with the title still on the line. It didn't really matter who they picked. But I also think from both sets of players, really, this was a game where, particularly once it went 2-0 up, once we went 2-0 up, rather, with the Madueke goal in the second half, it was like, okay, you've got a final and we've got a final, and let's just do some football. Do a little bit of football here, a little bit of football there, but not too much football, not a lot of energetic football, certainly not a great deal of tackling football. It was all just football. You know what I mean?
I agree. Was it another goal from a corner, by the way, extending our Premier League record?
It was. It was a corner to the back post. I think Martinelli took it, and it was Kai Havertz who nodded it down, and Noni Madueke, clattered it through a sea of legs, as they say, to make it 2-0.
And I think actually the real jeopardy in the second half, for me anyway, watching, was around injuries. Mm-hmm. I mean, what happened with Adam Wharton was like a real warning sign. So he was brought on at half-time. Glasner had this thing about, I'm going to kind of mix and match the team half by half, and both managers made changes at the break. But obviously Wharton comes on, sustained a bit of an ankle injury, and I watched him be substituted and trudge around the pitch looking absolutely dejected, and I just thought, oh God, let that not be one of our guys. I mean, Madueke was maybe the injury concern, wasn't he? He came off certainly feeling his hamstring, but didn't seem to be inhibiting him too much in the celebrations. No.
I mean, that was the worry, obviously, that there was something going on with his hamstring. For Wharton, it was really, I think it was just unfortunate, a bit innocuous, I don't think there's much there. I think it's Miles Lewis-Skelly who's kind of running behind him, and maybe just sort of clips him a little bit, but I don't think there's any sort of malice or intent. It's just one of those things. But yeah, you're right, because when he brought Gabriel on, I was like, okay, did we really need to do that? I get it, because you've got Calafiori, so you're sort of doing a bit of Calafiori protection. But I was like, I not sure I like this. Not sure I like this, because it can be just a moment that's innocuous that causes a problem. But thankfully, and hopefully Madueke is okay. Hopefully everybody else is come through okay.
Yeah, and of course, 45 minutes for Kai Havertz, which I think is really valuable to him, and half an hour for Mikel Merino as well. That's
the big one on the day, isn't it? Mikel Merino's return. Could have scored. Do you think a less rusty Mikel Merino just pokes his leg out and sticks that in the back of the net? Because I do.
He's so good in those positions ordinarily. So he'll probably feel he should have done better there. But yeah, so great to see him back. I mean, by all accounts, he's worked incredibly hard. It was quite a complicated break, I think. And he's made it back, and he's very much in contention now. Budapest, he may well play some part in that game. I suppose that's sort of been the carrot that's been dangled in front of him, hasn't it? Can you get back in time for, a World Cup as well beyond that? But brilliant to see him back, and clear, I think, how happy the other players were that he was involved. I think he's really well respected and really well liked among the group, and I think he's actually a leader in that team, which is, for a player who's not necessarily an automatic pick, I think you've got to be a kind of special character to hold that kind of status in the squad. Yeah,
there's been, I think, a few players this season who've probably contributed to, what we've done in a really positive way, even if at times they haven't been playing very much. I don't know if you got a chance to see the Declan Rice Bukayo Saka interview.
I've seen this clip,
Yeah, where basically he's talking about players in the dressing room who had things to say, and he said to Saka, I think, you know who I'm thinking of here? And Saka went, Chris? Like Norgard? And Rice went, oh, yeah, Norgard. Yeah, he was good, but like he wanted to make a point about Eberechi Eze and the way that he was a kind of calming voice in the dressing room at certain points in the season and contributed a lot. But I think you look at players like Norgard, like Marino, what's Marino now, 28, 29 maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, he's whatever age he is until such time as he changes age to a different age. We know this.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. But Norgard as well, who I'm sure when he joined Arsenal did not envisage his only Premier League start of the season coming at Selhurst Park on the final day, but apparently behind the scenes has been a consummate professional, really good pro, used his experience. And I think, there are a lot of unsung heroes and a lot of stories that probably don't get told and maybe won't get told because of the omerta of the dressing room and those kinds of things, But I always, I'm sure like you and people listening, I like to hear those stories, because they give you see these guys as more than footballers, more as humans, which is, obvious, but those elements of how these seasons go and what happens behind the scenes I think are really nice.
Yeah, they become three-dimensional, don't they?
Yeah.
I think that's been a big focus and a big message from Arteta as well, is that after the City game, he had this feeling that he really needed every single member of the squad pulling in the same direction. And that was kind of crystallized, I guess, in the song, that song that they've been listening to in the dressing room and in training, which mentions all the players, goes through all the squad. And I think that became kind of symbolic of that idea of everyone has a part to play in this running, whether it's on the pitch, whether it's supporting. And Norgard is someone who, everyone's talked about his attitude, his personality, his commitment, his work ethic, even when the opportunities haven't come his way. So I think you really do need people and players like that in a squad.
Yeah.
Marino undoubtedly is one of those. And I think even during his injury absence, he's been relatively present around the squad and part of team meetings and things like that. He did have a spell where he went back to Spain as well as part of his rehab, but back in the group now and really, really happy for him. By the way, the Zubimendi thing, obviously there was no Jurrien Timber on the day in the squad.
Mm-hmm.
The Zubimendi thing, is that just a case of sort of picking a team to make up the numbers? Is that something that's in Mikel Arteta's thoughts for Budapest? Do you read anything into that?
No, not really. I think it was a question of him not playing as much in the last few weeks, of us needing to fill a gap in the team yesterday because Mosquera played right centre-back in order to, what I think is obviously rest William Saliba. So I think he just chose Zubimendi over, a 16-year-old and trusted in the fact that Zubimendi, despite, let's say, the second half of his season not going as well as he would like probably and we would like, was an exceptional addition in the first half of the season and a key contributor in the first half of the season. I think we need to remember that. And he's an experienced guy, an experienced pro, and Mikel Arteta probably said to him, listen, I need you to do a job at right back. You don't need to be overlapping like prime Ben White or anything like that, but you know how to do the job because you're 26, 27 years of age. You played however many 100 professional games. Can you do that job for me? And I'm sure the answer was yes, boss. I think that's probably all it is, to be honest.
No, I do agree with that. And I have to say, it wasn't a performance that made me think, yes, let's go with Zubimendi against Kvaratskhelia, for example.
No.
But when I saw the lineup, the only intrigue to me is that when I saw the lineup, I assumed it would be Norgard at centre half, Mosquera at right back, and Zubamendi in midfield. That seemed to me to be the more natural setup, and relative to what Mikel's done before, I thought that would be the way it was. But no, it was very much Mosquera at centre back. I mean, again, maybe that was partly saving Mosquera's legs as well, to not give him that kind of overlapping right back role.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think, with all due respect to Christian Norgard, the couple of times that he's played at centre half, he looks out of position, despite the fact he is essentially a defensive midfielder. Listen, Palace got a goal, Jean-Philippe Mateta with a header, and then it looked like they got another goal, and there was part of me that was like, this doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. We're champions. We've won the title. But there was just a little part of me that was like, you're party poopers here. What you go and do that for?
You know what? It reminded me, different circumstances, but our last league title was a London derby, let's say, where we let a 2-goal lead slip to finish 2-2, wasn't it, in 2004 at White Hart Lane?
Oh,
And I was like, that's a weird, eerie parallel. If I'm honest, I was quite annoyed about the first goal. So was Kepa, by the way. He was absolutely fuming.
Well, clean sheet bonus gone out the window.
That's his last chance to get his clean sheet bonus. But also, I just kind of loved the narrative simplicity of, we had 5 games after City and we kept 5 clean sheets and sort of, really, fell back on our defensive prowess. But no, I suppose ultimately it doesn't matter. I was delighted to see that equaliser ruled out. Mm-hmm. Our old friend VAR coming to our aid again, and rightly so.
After review, those famous words. And nice to end on a win. Do you know what? Nice to end on a win because of what it did to the league table. Mm-hmm. I love City. Obviously got beat as well on the final day. They bottled it. That would not have happened. If those 2 games meant anything yesterday, I can fucking guarantee you that would not have happened.
I totally agree, but I'll take that 7-point gap at this stage. And their season slightly petered out, didn't it? The defeat at home to Villa. But 7 points looks very healthy. I mean, probably over the course of the season, that is, approaching a fair reflection. But
it felt
there were times. Well, I don't think anyone in April was predicting we'd win it by 7 points.
I don't think anyone after the Man City game would have predicted we'd win it by 7 points either. That's for sure.
No,
but it is what it is, and nobody can change the final standings. And
we won all 5, Andrew. We won. Mikel talked about that 5-game run-in. Well, and we went and won them all, which I don't think many of us necessarily saw us doing. So, credit to the manager and the players for finishing in that style.
Well, he said I looked this up because he was asked after the Man City defeat if he needed to pick the players up, and he said, "If I have to pick the players up to win the Premier League with 5 games to go in our hands and to be in the semi-final of the Champions League, I think I should be at home." So it's not the case. It's not needed. It's never been needed, even in difficult moments. So we go again. That's for sure. I mean, I do think there were quotes from Martin Odegaard as well, where he talked about after the title lift, where he talked about difficult moments in the season, referencing the Bournemouth game and referencing the Wolves game, and I'm sure after the Man City game as well. To lose to Man City twice in short. What's the word? Quick succession is what I'm trying to say.
Quick succession, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. My brain is as exhausted as everything else. There is a lot to deal with there. And he said, we had conversations in the dressing room. Everybody had something to say. And I think when you look at it, what Arsenal did was win 5 games to win the title. And we played really well in one of those games, the Fulham game. That was the only one I think you can say we played really, really well in.
Agreed.
Every other game, we just fucking ground it out. 1-0 against Newcastle. It was a 1-0 against Burnley. What's the other game I'm forgetting in there? 2-1 against Palace.
1-0
against West Ham, of course, after review. So there is a real strength of character and resilience to this team, which, has been mentioned, of course. But to sort of pick themselves up at that moment where, I wrote in the blog after that Man City game, if you feel like you've seen this movie before, it's because you have, and I don't like the ending. I then went on to say, it's not set in stone. A lot can happen in 2 games, let alone 5, but we've no margin for error. We've got to turn this run of 1 win in 6 into 5 wins in a row. And they fucking did it. And they absolutely scrapped it out. And I'm delighted, actually, like you, that in the end, this is not a title that was won on goal difference. It's not a title that was won by a single point. It's 7 points. And I think, after everything we've been through, not this season, but the seasons that have come before, I'm glad it looks comprehensive in the end, even if, throughout this season we have been on tenterhooks more than once.
Well, Andrew, think of all the conversations we and others were having about goal difference.
Yeah.
How are we going to get this goal difference up? That's how close we felt it was going to be. Mm-hmm. So to have that bit of breathing space at the end, fantastic. And what was amazing to see, by the way, was after full time, once those Palace formalities subsided, was quite how many Crystal Palace fans stuck around to not only watch the trophy lift, but enjoy it and seemingly join in with some of the Arsenal songs.
That is interesting, isn't it? I wonder, is there another reason why that could have happened?
It was extraordinary.
Fair play to those Crystal Palace fans.
Listen, they changed their allegiance in the course of the 90 minutes. They arrived as diehard Crystal Palace supporters, but they were so won over by the charisma of Christian Norgard that they converted to become Arsenal supporters by full time.
Amazing. He has such charisma. Listen, if you could get into that ground yesterday by hook or by crook, why wouldn't you if you could? There
were people also watching from the roof of Sainsbury's as well.
Well, why not? Load up on snacks. Kill your friends. No, that's not it. That's a different thing.
That's something else. But yeah, it was, like I say, there must have been, I don't know, a couple of thousand extra Arsenal fans. Not that we endorse or condone that, but
I do. I endorse it. I condone the fuck out of it. Fair play to anybody who was in there, because the scenes were incredible, right? When they eventually got going, when the podium was built, when the Palace formalities were finished, then the scenes got really, really good. And all the staff came out first and foremost wearing the away kit, all of them with different players on the back. Arteta was asked about this in the press conference, but he didn't really go into the detail of who was wearing what name and why. He just sort of said it was a tribute to the players to go with their hard work. Is that who's your favorite player? You get one of those. You get a Calafiori, you get a Gabriel, you get a Martinelli, or is it a bit more by design? I don't know. Doesn't matter, but those were nice. What about the vision, if I can call it that, of Mikel Arteta in a red and white shirt again? First, actually, we know what winning the title means for Mikel Arteta. It means a change of kit, right? Because gone was the black pullover. Instead, he had, may have been the day, may have been the weather, but it's too much of a coincidence that the day after or the next game after we win the title, his sideline attire is different, more casual.
Well, but yeah, I guess it symbolises a bit of a change in him. But he did look resplendent in red and white. It could have been 2014, couldn't it, Andrew?
Well, it was 2016, no? When he
2016,
left,
yeah.
When he left. So 10 years, more or less, a little over 10 years to the day where he last wore the red and white Arsenal shirt as a player. A very, very emotional day for him. If you remember, he was visibly upset on the pitch. I remember him doing an interview with Sky afterwards, and he was visibly upset in that as well. Lots of tears for Mikel Arteta. So a really emotional day 10 years ago. Equally emotional day for him 10 years later, but in a much more celebratory way.
It was, and it really helped me kind of reconnect Arteta the player with Arteta the coach. Just that visual, it really took me back, and you sort of think, wow, what a journey this guy has been on with this club. And it makes you reflect on the depth of that connection, which I think he feels really keenly. So yeah, it was great to see him in relaxed mood. I mean, it was Arteta who, once players had collected their medals and Martin had lifted the trophy, it was Mikel who took it over to the travelling support, really. That kind of spinning, slaloming little jog he did before raising it in front of the fans. And, you know, he took their warmth and congratulations and absolutely deserved it. And he had his family there with him, as many of the staff and players did. And I think a few tears were shared yesterday as well, and you can understand why.
He's really, really, really earned that moment, and I mean it in the literal sense, in terms of how hard he has worked and what dedication he has put in since day one, arriving at this football club. Wanting to raise the standards, wanting to bring big trophies back. You know, and we've referenced this, haven't we, a few times, where like a week or 10 days or something before he took over, he was on the bench with Man City with Pep Guardiola, and he looked around that Arsenal stadium and recognised that things were not right, you know? A club of the stature of Arsenal was in a bad place. You know, the connection between the team and the fans was not there. Things were not working at executive level. Decision-making was poor. There was a lot of work to do on the pitch and off the pitch. And I think yesterday for Mikel Arteta is a culmination of all of that work. And I said this the other day on the blog. You know, one thing we very rarely discuss is how extraordinarily difficult the job of a football manager is. Right? Because they're the figurehead. We see them all the time. They're in the spotlight. They pick the team. They make the decisions. They're there to be criticized when things go wrong. And when things go right, it's like, yeah, good. That's what you should be doing. We accept the good stuff. And when the bad stuff happens, we do not accept this. This is not good enough, blah, 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 blah. But only a very, very select few managers who work in the game or have ever worked in the game have won the Premier League, have been able to do what Mikel Arteta did yesterday after however many seasons. Even if you were critical of him along the way, if you thought it was whatever, he is now in the pantheon of managers who have done something very, very rare. Someone has to win it every year, but, you know, a lot of the time it's just one guy who's got all the money in the world. And I think Arteta deserves huge credit, and I'm really pleased, you know, not above and beyond, but as well as being so pleased for us as fans and for these players and for the team and for the Arsenal fans all over the world. I really am happy for Mikel Arteta because, you know, I watched his interview on Sky afterwards, and he sort of said, you know, there were times I wondered, am I the guy who can only take them this far? That maybe they need somebody else to come in and do the final bit. And to work through that level of self-doubt, I think he's very self-aware. To be willing to talk about that, I think, on live television. It's not really something you hear managers do a lot. You know, they don't really admit to stuff like that. So I think it was really powerful that, you know, on the day where he finally got it over the line and where he becomes a Premier League winning manager for Arsenal Football Club, that he was still willing to sort of open up in that way, because he is, as you alluded to earlier, he can be quite guarded. But I think, you know, in moments like this, we see a different Mikel Arteta, and I'm really pleased for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think him wearing that red and white shirt really reinforced to me this idea that as much as he had a fantastic playing career and won silverware with Arsenal, this Premier League trophy, and of course the Champions League trophy as well, is something that eluded him. It's a peak that he never quite reached. And to take Arsenal there as manager now must be incredibly satisfying for him. And something he's wanted for a long, long time. So I think we're very lucky as Arsenal fans. You know, we have a really outstanding coach who understands the culture of the club and holds the club in great regard. And that's an incredibly powerful combination.
I think it's,
it's great.
I think as well, you know, in his press conference that you were in, he made a point of saying something like, this is a victory for the we. Was that, am I misquoting him there?
Something like that.
Where he said, like, you know, I think there are other managers who, if they'd won the Premier League after taking some of the stick that he's taken, and I thought, by the way, Amy's piece over the weekend about Mikel Arteta was really, really good, because externally, there's a surface level view of him, right? And I can understand how he might be annoying to some people, but I also think it doesn't go very far. I'm annoyed by Mikel Arteta, therefore everything he does is shit, and he's an idiot and a wanker and a cunt. And I've heard that from people close to me, not mentioning any mug smashers' names at all, right? But I do think if you read what he says and if you listen to what he says in an objective way, you know, I think we understand Mikel Arteta very well, right? Because we consume every aspect of what it is that he does. I think externally there is almost a caricature version of him that's widely held to be true, and I don't think it is. And I think there were other managers, or would be other managers, who, if they won the title yesterday, would be a bit more about them. They'd make it a bit more about them. And I think what Arteta did yesterday, he had his moment. He had the little spirally trophy lift, and I think he deserved that and he earned that, and I'm really glad to see it. But the fact that he made it clear that this was a victory for everybody, you know, for fans, for the players, for families, for staff, for fans all over the world, for the owners, for everybody who works behind the scenes at the club. I thought that was really good. I really did think that was the right way to frame it, when I'm not sure too many people would have blamed him if he'd been a bit more like, well, I fucking did it, up yours, you know, which we know is not really him, but that's kind of how some people think he is, which isn't the case.
Yeah. If he'd opened up his own big book of fuck-offs, you know, he would have been within his rights, but he didn't. He was very dignified in it. And, you know, he mentioned people who aren't with the club anymore, who've been part of the journey. It was Edu got a mention, Vinay, Tim Lewis. Yeah. You know, he made a point of kind of saying it's not just his success. And, you know, you mentioned his emphasis on the we. I just opened up my transcript of his press conference and tried to find the specific bit that you're talking about, but the word we was said 43 times. So you know, that is the message. He didn't want to make it about him. It was about the collective, it was about the group. And I just thought all round there were some fantastic scenes. I mean, Bukayo Saka leading the fans in the scene of LA, Eze singing his song with the crowd, Ben White in a knee brace and sunglasses trying to take Pierre Hincapie's shorts down.
I love that so much. I really did.
It was lots of good fun, and no surprise William Saliba was at the centre of most of the celebrations as well. Mm-hmm. He lives for this stuff.
The Gyökeres picture is fucking brilliant, isn't it? Like he's doing the Gyökeres celebration, all the fans behind him doing it, like absolutely superb.
Yeah, I think if you're in that away end, or indeed in the home end, those memories, will last you a long time. It's a pretty special day to be part of.
Yeah, it really was amazing. So now what?
Well, I'm imagining at least a day off for the players.
I think so.
They went off to a party last night in central London with Louis Dunford there singing, The Angel, among other things, and then surely a day off today, and then it's back to work, right?
Yeah, it's back to work. There's a fairly big game at the weekend, I believe.
There is. And I wonder, it felt almost sort of mean to ask it really of Mikel yesterday, but I wonder amid these celebrations and amid the rightful focus on the conclusion of the Premier League and lifting the trophy, I wonder how much thought he is giving to that European final, or has given to it.
All of it. All of it.
Yeah. I suspect so.
We know what a stickler for detail he is, so I think, what he said was quite interesting, was that they want to use the energy of winning the title in Budapest, right? So it is about recognizing that these players have put in a gargantuan effort over 38 games and come out on top. And then to use that, you can't just say, right, well done, lads, straight onto the training ground. We've got to get back down to hard work. I think you have to give them their time, their moment, the chance to celebrate, the chance to decompress a little as well. Because I think if we talk about, we were talking briefly last night on WhatsApp about how Arteta looked like a man for whom a huge weight and a huge burden had been lifted. Surely the same is, true of those players. Mm-hmm. When you look at that, team that you mentioned that started the first game of the season at Crystal Palace in 2022, right? So there's still some of those players are still there. Ben White is there, Gabriel is there, Saliba is there, Odegaard is there, Martinelli there, Saka, they've been through a lot, I think, as players, and I think to get the best out of them on Saturday, you have to sort of let the reins loose a little bit.
I think so. It's all I can say is that I feel infinitely better about the prospect of a final against PSG having won this trophy. I think the players are in a fantastic headspace, and I think Arteta's absolutely right. They've got to carry that into the final. I still think it's going to be very tough. I still think, the kind of emotional and physical toll of the Premier League run-in is going to be substantially greater than what PSG have had to contend with in the last few weeks. But you have to make a virtue of that. That's what Arteta's saying. He's saying we have to use that momentum and carry that into the final. And I feel really confident that whatever happens, Arsenal's supporters will still have enormous gratitude and appreciation for what the players have achieved this season.
Yeah.
I think the players can take some comfort from that. I mean, you can never say of a Champions League final, they have nothing to lose. It's just not true.
No.
But it does feel like we're into territory where there's more to gain. It feels like it would be an incredible bonus. But if all we had this season was the Premier League title, you can see from the scenes that have unfolded over the past week, how much that means to people. That would never feel inadequate or insufficient.
No. Far from it. I mean, before we go into a break, can I just ask how we were joking at the top about being kind of tired and exhausted, but I mean, do you take a moment to reflect on the fact that we've been doing this for as long as we've been doing it, and this has been a dream throughout all that time, where there were times where we said, God, I feel, I had a DM weirdly from a Liverpool fan, Dean Van Wyn, and he asked a question on the August 23rd 2021 episode of the Arsecast Extra, and he said, how confident are you that Arsenal can win the league title by 2034 when they'd match Liverpool's 30-year drought? James believed there was a 25% likelihood that Arsenal can do it. Andrew's confidence was at 7%. Right now, it's very difficult to see that as a possibility, he added. So he went on to say, has it ever felt so good to be so wrong? And no, I'm not sure it has, but that is kind of how our realities have changed in that period of time, where, listen, we're very lucky. Whatever happens on the pitch, we're really, really lucky to be able to do what we do. And it's always a privilege to get these podcasts out to everybody. But I have to say, I feel so much relief and happiness that we've finally done it. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's all kind of gone in a blur. I don't quite know how to explain it.
Yeah, and like I said, I keep kind of pinching myself and asking if this is all real. But I'm sure it will sink in at some point. I do reflect on that a lot, and I reflect on, how lucky I am to have the proximity I do and the access that I do and have the community around me and us that I do. I mean, that's an incredible privilege. So yeah, it's been a long road for all of us. And yeah, I think, if you think back in the depths of the podcasts that we've done over the past, decade and beyond, after we've been battered by 5 goals up at Man City and in the third game of the season, and it looks so bleak. I'm sure they would make for interesting listens now. But that is being a football fan, right? And I wish all days were like yesterday, but they can't be. And I think actually you earn those celebrations. It's been a bit of a theme, hasn't it, of Arsenal being accused of over-celebrating. But I really don't think anybody, even the usual suspects, can say that at this point, because I think everyone recognises, whether they like Arsenal, whether they like Mikel Arteta, whether they like Arsenal supporters, everybody knows that we have suffered and waited for this. Yeah. And I think we are so within our rights to enjoy it. And it's brilliant to watch people at Selhurst Park, outside the Emirates, and around the world reveling in this moment.
Some of the videos are just amazing, of fans all over the world congregating wherever they congregated, whether it was a bar, whether it was in a public square, just getting together and celebrating those moments. Is it okay to celebrate now? Said Ian Wright the other night. I think that's that's a reasonable question. I just want to go into part 2. I want to play this because I just thought it was really, really funny. Talk about the big book of fuck-offs. Maybe we have to give a little dedication to Mick McCarthy.
As much as Arsenal have been celebrating, there's been a few critics as to how they've done it. What would you say to those critics?
I'd say shut up. A lot of you. You're a bunch of clowns.
Decent place to leave it for part 1?
I think well said. Well said.
All right, we will take a little break here and we'll come back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the title trophy lift winning all of it Arsecast Extra, and this is part 2 of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Blue Sky at gunnerblog.bsky.social and what's my one? At arseblog.com. I should not have forgotten that. Fuck.
Now, I'd say, if anything, yours is the easier one to remember.
It is. It should be. But there you go. There's where my brain is. Something, Discord, blah, blah, Patreon, blah, blah,
Questions.
Discord, blah, blah,
Blah, blah, blah, blah,
yeah, blah, 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 blah. Do you want to go first? I think it's probably wise that you do. See if I can just get my my mind functioning again. Just give myself, like an old TV. Remember the old TV where the picture wasn't great? You just gave it a smack on the side. Yeah. I'm just going to do that with my own head now. So just, I'm better. I'm better. I'm better.
Okay, we're working.
We're doing it.
This is from Per Johnson. We saw Arsenal's owners on the pitch yesterday. Stan was in town as well as Josh. And Per says...
Glory Hunter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Per says, this is the question, I guess. The fans rightly sang Kroenke out. But since they took full ownership of the club, rid us of Usmanov and put Josh in control, they've been virtually flawless as owners, in my opinion. When clubs are run by murderous nation states and the likes of Bowley and Ratcliffe, can we give the Kroenkes their flowers and acknowledge what they've done to stabilise our club and build it?
Sure. I mean, listen, there was the whole Super League thing as well, which they went along with, and that didn't work out for them or any of the other owners. And I think, this is a podcast about celebration. It's a podcast about enjoying what we have achieved, and I think it's right that we keep the focus on that. I think with any big organization, any football club, any owners, really, there is probably a level of moral compromise or cognitive dissonance required, right? Mm-hmm. But fair play. They backed the manager. They backed him, financially. He's built a team that's now won the Premier League, which is something we've all wanted for a long time. And, he doesn't do that and can't do that without the backing that he's got from the owners. So I think we have to give them credit for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think if you look across their teams, maybe with the exception of the Colorado Rapids, they are enjoying a very successful period. They're getting a lot right on the pitch. It has been a total transformation in perception for them. I was at and part of those protests after the Super League debacle. And, I think their standing among the supporters could not really have been much lower at that point in time. They have rehabilitated themselves in rehabilitating the club and in restoring the club to the top of the tree in English football terms with massive investment. That is part of this story, and it's probably a part that I think a lot of Arsenal fans push back against because they say, well, look at the investment elsewhere, and that's totally understandable. But you cannot win things in the Premier League. You cannot compete with nation states and the like without spending some serious money.
Yeah.
And Arsenal have done that. They've done it in a different way, in what they believe to be a more responsible way. But they've still needed to do it. And I think the owners have seen the opportunity that existed. I think maybe principally in Mikel Arteta, but also in a very young, talented squad. This was the time for Arsenal to really push the boat out. And if you look at what they did last summer in terms of spending about 250 million quid, they went for it. They went for it, and they got their reward. So
yeah.
Very, very, very interesting. I can't think of many situations where an ownership of a football club has changed minds in the way that KSE have.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And I think what people who have worked under them say is that their greatest attribute really is the trust and agency they give to the people they employ and the people they choose to run the football club. And I think we've actually seen some instances in the past where that hasn't necessarily worked.
I was going to say, yeah.
You know, there have been eras, you think of maybe the Sanyei era, where too much trust was put in certain individuals and it wasn't necessarily the best thing for the football club, but they appear to have learned from that. And certainly they've got some great people, some great hires working at the club at the moment, chiefly Arteta. And they've given him license and they've backed him all the way. So, you know, they had their moment with the trophy yesterday. I'm sure that will have meant a great deal, particularly to Josh, to have that moment lifting the trophy with his father. And fair play. They, like all of us, they've suffered and been through the ringer, certainly reputationally in this journey. So they deserve their moment too.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, you know, we very rarely talk about the owners unless things are gone wrong. Things are going wrong. And then
and Andrew, that's as it should be.
I agree, yeah.
It should be about the players and the manager. That's the right way round. But you know, the question makes a good point. I think we've said for a long time, you know, we as generalising as supporters, we had issues with KSC, we had issues with the Cronkies. Then it sort of shifted to more, well, is it better the devil you know kind of thing? And I think now, objectively, you've got to stand back and look at it and say, I think as owners go, you know, they're ticking a lot of the right boxes right now.
Okay, here's a question from Ace Ventura 85 on the Discord. He said, "Goodly fucking morning, gents. What stuck out to you most from all the interviews this week? For me, it's just how aware the players were of everything that's being said online."
That is a great point. I mean, they can laugh about it now. I really enjoyed the video of Eze talking about the
bottle
the Man
guy.
City guy mocked up as a bottle.
He was much more magnanimous about that guy than I would be. But maybe, you know, deep down, Eberechi Eze is just a better person than I am. But yeah, that was a great video. The laugh was super infectious, wasn't it?
I must say, in terms of sort of how things played out digitally, I gotta doff my cap, say chapeau to Miles Lewis Skelly on his Instagram caption. So the picture was Miles sat in front of the Arsenal fans holding the Premier League trophy, captioned simply with "pure profit."
Contextualize that for people who might not quite understand it.
Well, we assume, I think it's safe to assume it's a reference to the talk about his potential sale in the summer, and the fact that as an academy player, any revenue generated would have been classed as pure profit. He's probably had that one in his back pocket, I think, certainly for a few weeks.
Sure.
I enjoyed that. But you're right. But I mean, again, it shows an awareness of the narrative, right? The discourse around the players. And I think if you follow any of the players on social media, their posts over the last few days indicate that they hear everything. And that is almost frightening, isn't it? To think that they go through the season as conscious, as aware of the kind of swirling narratives as any of us. Yeah,
I mean, Saka, it's done. No more jokes, man. It's our time. Martin Odegaard said, "Yeah, I see what people are saying. It doesn't affect me at all, but it's nice to be able to laugh back at it, you know." These are young men and they're online and, you know, why wouldn't they be? I think there's probably, for the sake of, you know, mental health or whatever way you want to frame it, you know, it might be better if they weren't as online at times.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure some of it, you know, however you say, it doesn't affect me, I'm not bothered by that, you know. They're only human at the end of the day. And, you know, things people say about you, whether you respect the person who's saying it or not, can be hurtful and they can be damaging to your confidence or whatever. So, listen, they're in a great position now to be able to give it back. My only sadness is that yesterday Aaron Ramsey wasn't there to not shake Piers Morgan's hand again. But there's a small complaint.
Yes, no Aaron Ramsey as far as I could see. Ian Wright, of course, was there.
That was lovely, wasn't it? Ian Wright on the Selhurst Park pitch as Arsenal win the title for the first time in 22 years, given his connection with both those clubs and his very obvious connection with the players as well. You could see that the way they embraced him, Declan Rice, Saka, Odegaard, Mikel Arteta when he came over. I did enjoy very much Mikel Arteta's very perfunctory handshake with Jamie Redknapp at the end. That was funny to me.
Yes, no big slaps exchanged.
No.
I'm trying to think of other ex-players I spotted. Obviously, Lee Dixon was there on commentary duty. Mm-hmm. Jens Lehmann was up in the press box with us.
He did an interview with David Raya afterwards, and he was talking about David Raya, and he was also talking about the Champions League final and the opportunity they had to do what those players couldn't do back in the day. And he said, my advice to you is don't get sent off. Apologies for the terrible accent there, or the terrible Jens Lehmann impression, but
it's good advice. So yeah, there were a few ex-players present, and you mentioned, by the way, the kind of serendipity of Ian Wright being there. What a mad day for Eberechi Eze yesterday to pick up the Premier League trophy. He got a brilliant reception, even just for warming up. He got a standing ovation from the Palace fans. To be honest, Andrew,
do you think it was
probably should have had a goal.
He should have had a goal. Yeah, it was a good save by Henderson, and
it was funny when they blew the full-time whistle. Like all the Arsenal players, their arms went up in the air, and Eze did that thing where he put his shirt over his head. He was still thinking about the miss, and I was like, "Listen, mate, you ain't got nothing to complain about the year that you've had.
That's true.
Let this one go, I think." And then he got very much into the swing of it and the celebrations. But yes, good to see some former Arsenal players there representing too. Right. Wordsmiths cut straight to the chase.
Oh, God.
On Discord.
Okay, here we go.
Prediction time. How many trophies, Premier League and Champions League, will Arteta win with Arsenal before he moves on? Now, in my wildest dreams, Andrew, I don't believe you're going to answer this question. But I consider it a way into a discussion about the future and what this could unlock and what the opportunity is for Arteta and Arsenal in the coming years.
Okay, I just don't fucking know. I don't know. I can't do that. I can barely predict a game at this point. I'm not going to predict the next couple of years of a manager's career. I hope, obviously, lots would be great. I think what's fascinating about what we do next and where we go from here is, how do you present that challenge to a group of players that have finished second 3 years in a row and then have finally won it? It sort of feels like you've done what you achieved or done what you set out to do, right? Last Sunday, I was in London. It was the day after our Union Chapel event. And I got a coffee and I went and I sat on a bench, at the back of King's Cross. They've done up that whole area now. It's all fancy and there's nice benches and trees and shit. I like a good tree. So I sat there under the tree on the bench drinking my coffee. And I had a real sense of like, well, my work here is done. It's time to go home.
Right off into the sunset. And it was Sunday and the game wasn't until Monday. The game against Burnley wasn't until Monday. But I really did have that feeling of like, yep, that's it. Job done. I should just sort of toddle off to the airport, get my bag and sort of go home. And I'm not saying the Arsenal players are going to be sitting on their metaphorical benches at King's Cross with cups of coffee in their hand thinking that's it now, because they obviously have a different mindset to me. But what I think is interesting is Arteta's got to sort of get them to go again, right? He's got to get them to go again next season. And I wonder if the challenge is be the first Arsenal team in the modern era
to retain the title. Like we had 2002 and 2004, and we should have fucking won it in 2003, right? Mm-hmm. And we had 89 and 91 where, it was a little bit different, but we haven't in the modern era retained the title. And I think that might be how he presents it to these players and whoever else is in the team come next summer.
He's already working on it. That shift in mentality that's required. He said this in his press conference after the game. I said to the boys that this shirt now represents something else. We are the champions, and that brings a lot of confidence and a different kind of presence and energy to it. But as well, another kind of responsibility. And my job now, and everybody at the club, is going to be to lift those standards now and achieve much more, because I think we are capable of doing it. So there's no sense of resting on his laurels. He's already saying that this title brings with it another degree of expectation. And I expect my team to live up to that billing, which is classic Mikel, really.
It is.
He's raising the bar again. And in terms of what that means for the future, I mean, look, hopefully, I think a new contract will be in the post. I mean, you would like to think that could get signed off over the course of the summer. And Arsenal are incredibly well positioned, certainly in Premier League terms, because you look around the league, Man City have just lost Guardiola, right? He stepped down.
He can fuck off.
Chelsea finished about 15th, didn't they? Or something like that. 10th, weren't they? I don't know. They'd very much dropped out of Europe, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, I suppose, but financially a disaster. They finished 10th. They've got Xabi Alonso coming in there trying to pick up the pieces. United got a relatively inexperienced manager in Carrick, who I think still is a bit of an unknown quantity, certainly when he's contending with a more congested fixture list. Liverpool, Slot's future in some doubt, finished 5th, in need of a bit of a rebuild there. So we're, Arsenal, the continuity, the stability that we have, the age profile of the players, the quality of the manager. There's real opportunity there for us to, as you say, not just win one title, but create a bit of a dynasty.
Yeah. Consolidate on this and use the confidence and the belief that you get from knowing you can do it. And that's something we talked about, with regards to Manchester City, right? Leaving aside, as difficult as it is, the various behind the scenes and legalistic shit that they have been accused of, one of the things that we spoke about over the last number of seasons was the fact that City, when it came to the crunch, knew they could do it. Maybe they had some help along the way. Maybe they just had brilliant players or a brilliant manager. Maybe there was a little more to it. But either way, they knew that they could do it. And I think that's powerful. That's something that goes in your back pocket and doesn't leave, And I think this is something I'm hoping to see from Arsenal next season. And maybe as well, it helps us as fans, right? That when the going gets tough, as it did this season, right? The going got tough. And because we were not confident or hadn't experienced them getting it done, it's easy to resort to worst case scenario, right? Your glass is half full. Or glass half empty, right? It's not half full. But now that we know that they can do it and have done it, does that give us a little more peace next season? If it's a tight title race and if a result in March or April doesn't go our way, do we throw the baby out with the bathwater, or do we say, hey, remember, this happened last year and this team was able to sort of pick itself back up and go again? So maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just depends on human nature and how you are as a person or an individual and a fan. But I do think it will certainly lift some of the extreme tension that we felt this season.
And to finish, my prediction is 50 trophies.
50 in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can live with that. I can live with that. I'm not sure the parade organisers would be as happy.
Yeah, Islington Council would be pretty worried.
They'd be like, fuck, not another one. They've won the Emirates Cup and they're having a parade. Let me ask you this one from Gary Roper.bsky.social. He asks, any insight on why Ethan Nwaneri wasn't at the presentation? I thought I'd seen that he was back from France.
Yeah, we had a few questions about Ethan. People sort of concerned, or Ian Loader said, has there been a better morning, gentlemen? Penny for Ethan Nwaneri's thoughts. Amid all the celebrations I've felt for him, especially given the path that Ethan MLS have shared. Given Max's emergence, I cannot see a future for Ethan at Arsenal. Can you? I mean, Ethan is back. He's back at the training ground. I think he was at the nightclub with the players on Tuesday night. So he wasn't at London Colney to watch the game, but I think he joined the squad for the celebrations. And then I think he reported back into the training ground on Wednesday. I guess it is a little surprise that he wasn't visibly there yesterday.
Is it because he's not maybe technically
not registered?
Not registered, therefore he he couldn't be part of it. I don't know, but I mean, you saw players, Tommy Setford, for example, who hasn't played in the Premier League, but is was there in the middle of the celebrations and that kind of stuff.
I mean, you'd like to think Arsenal would have the means to get him a ticket or get him there. I don't know. I don't know why he wasn't there. I feel it's a bit of a shame, to be honest. And yeah, I'm sure he has some. I was going to say regrets. I don't mean regrets in terms of that he himself has necessarily taken a wrong decision or a wrong move along the way, but I'm sure he wishes things had panned out differently for him in the second half of the season, especially given the fact that at one point in time we had a bit of an injury crisis in midfield. He might have actually got some minutes. In terms of his future, I don't know. I mean, look, the Miles case shows you it's very difficult to kind of prognosticate on a young player's future. It can change so quickly. But Ethan is another one of those who would be counted as pure profit. And given the fact that we effectively won the title without him, could he be right for a possible sale?
Yeah.
You'd have to say it's a possibility at this point in time, but I don't know. And I agree. It was a bit of a shame not to see him there yesterday, even though there may be a very
technical reason,
technical explanation. Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think about it?
I mean, I don't quite know what's going to happen. I think it is a bit of a shame that somebody who was in the squad a lot during the first half of the season wasn't able to be there. If it is a technicality, then maybe it's something that needs to be looked at. We'll see what happens in the summer. I think there's going to be some movement, but I'm sort of loath to go into that at this moment in time because we've got obviously a big game on Saturday and the season's not over yet. And those feel like sort of end of season discussions or certainly summer discussions that we can have. So let's see. Let's see with Ethan. Is it your question, my question? I don't know.
I think it's mine.
I think it is actually, yeah.
This is not a question, more a statement, but I thought it worthy of some mention. Jack Rice on Blue Sky said, not a question, but told my dad, who I would listen to the podcast with every week and who passed in 2024, that I'd get a goodly morning tattoo if we won the league. I'll send pictures once it's done. Come on, you Gunners.
Please do send pictures. We'd love to see that.
We need to see those pictures.
Yeah, we know now that Jack Rice is not the guy who hates goodly mornings. Or if he is, he's willing to take one for the team. He's regretting
that promise he made. That's for sure.
He's willing to take one for the team, all right.
But this question comes from Uwal Halla, and you'll have to forgive me if I've pronounced that wrong. And they say, speaking earlier on the need for a player to go supersonic to win the league, is it fair to say that Raya has been supersonic this whole season? Or is this just his fucking standard?
I think like every player this season, he's had moments which weren't optimal.
Yeah.
But I think that's just par for the course. With most players, there's going to be a mistake from a defender, a mistake from a goalkeeper, a striker who misses a chance. You know what I thought of the other day when we'd won it? I thought about that Kai Havertz header at Man City. And obviously he scored the header against Burnley, which won us that game, and then City dropped the points. But it was one of those where I was like, every player has this moment where they're capable of doing better in that moment, but it doesn't quite happen. I think Raya has probably been one of the most consistent players, though, this season. There are some I'd mention alongside that: Gabriel, Saliba, Rice. I would say that's kind of it in terms of like long-term consistency over the course of the season. I think other people have come in and done fine and done well to varying degrees, but nobody's been really quite as consistent as them over the course of the season. But Raya absolutely has been. From day one, I watched a compilation of his saves the other day. It's fucking ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous, some of the saves he makes. There was one he clawed off the line. Was it against Spurs?
Yeah, possibly.
Just unreal. Like, he's been absolutely brilliant this season. So I don't know if he goes supersonic or whatever way it's being framed there, but I think from day one, he's been just a super important player for Arsenal and a key contributor to our title.
Yeah, I think he's had an outstanding season. I think he is at his peak. I think he's performing at an elite level. I think he has improved enormously from the player he was at Brentford. I think he's matured. He's arriving at that age as well where we do tend to see the best of goalkeepers. I even saw a little clip. I was served an ad on Instagram of him talking about his nutrition. He was, I think, talking about when he was at Blackburn or playing down the leagues. And he said he was about 10 kilograms heavier.
That's because all he was eating was pies.
Well, I think genuinely that was kind of the point of the ad because it was for a sort of meal service. But he's so lithe, athletic, commanding. Yeah, I think he is the best goalkeeper in the division right now. One of the best goalkeepers in Europe. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Unai Simon must be bloody, bloody good because I just find it so hard to see why David Raya is not starting for Spain in the World Cup this summer.
Same. It must be sort of a managerial preference more than goalkeeping quality or certainly form because, 3 Golden Gloves in a row for David Raya this season. Arsenal, with another record for him. You see that stat where we're the only Premier League team to go through an entire season without conceding a penalty or a red card?
Yeah, incredible.
Mad. Not long ago...
We've come a long way in that respect.
We certainly have. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about the discipline being a fairly significant issue for Mikel Arteta and for his players. So, yeah. Here's one from Silla O on the Discord. Extremely goodly morning to you both. Now that the league season is over, what are your sliding doors moments? I'd like to mention Erling Haaland choosing not to take a dive and get Big Gabby sent off when he made a headbutt motion towards him. If it was another teammate such as Rodri, Bernardo Silva, Cherki, they would have 100% feigned injury to try and get Gabriel sent off. Funnily enough, I think Haaland's respect for Gabriel as a competitor stopped him from going down.
Yeah, I think that's certainly one. I think when you win a league, a lot of margins have to go in your favour. And I remember last season really feeling like they just weren't. In 24, 25, so many close calls, so many big moments went against us. And I remember kind of repeatedly saying, you don't win the league in those years.
No,
you just don't.
Yeah, you need the rub of the green along the way.
You do need the rub of the green along the way. And we have kind of had that this year. And, you mentioned the no red cards, you mentioned the no penalties. there should have been a couple of penalties against us, I think. And certainly, whatever they're called, the kind of officials panel who review these incidents have said as much. And the Gabriel red card is another example of where probably should have been one, wasn't given. I think there was a penalty, Goodison Park, that could have gone, maybe a Mikel Arteta handball.
But then you think,
like 4 or 5 quite big, potentially match-changing, point-costing incidents that have gone in our favour. I'm not saying there are others that haven't, that we've been robbed of, but I think by and large, we have had that bit of luck along the way. And unfortunately, I just don't, when the margins are so fine, I just don't think you can do it without that. So sliding doors moments, I mean, obviously it's late in the season, but the West Ham video review has to be one. I think that Gabriel Martinelli equaliser against Man City.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's just a really big goal more than a sliding doors moment, but it feels like the kind of thing you had to do if you were going to go on and win the league.
Absolutely. But it's all part of the tapestry now, right? It's all part of the narrative, and it's interesting. Like, I don't think this title was ever going to be easy. Even, I think if you were looking at it objectively at sort of the mid-season point, January time, a lot of onlookers were saying Arsenal have an opportunity here to sort of close out this league pretty effectively, to sort of build up a lead that gives them comfort. And we failed to take that opportunity. And I kind of feel like it did have to be this way almost, that this first league title after 22 years was always going to involve drama and a scrap right until the end. I'm not sure I ever fully believed there'd be another eventuality.
Sure.
But yeah, lots of big moments along the way, undoubtedly.
Okay. Let me see. We had a lot of questions about this. The White Jay-Z asks, simple question, whose trophy lift hit you the most? For me, it was Saka. Seeing the pure radiant joy on his smiling face hit me in such an emotional way. I was, for what felt like the 49th time in the last week, very specific, but 49 is a good number, reduced to a teary mess.
Yeah, I think we spoke about players being aware of kind of online memes and things. Saka recreating his Arsenal fans use a better pose, but with the Premier League trophy very much in shot. That's quite a powerful image.
Yes, I think so. I think
Saka, I mean, he's our longest serving player now. And he's been at the club such a long time. Not quite 22 years, but not miles and miles off it.
No.
So he knows more than most about what this wait has felt like. And actually, after the Arsenal players had kind of retreated to the dressing room towards the end of the celebrations, there was a little moment where he went back out on the pitch with the trophy, perhaps to take that very picture, actually. But it was quite poignant seeing Saka just alone on the pitch with the Premier League title, with a medal around his neck. There's a sort of heavy, poignant symbolism to that.
Sure.
So yeah, I think he was really the one where, for me, it was the most emotional to see him lift it.
Yeah, I have to say, I think Ben White, who is, as I've said before, very tied to the Arteta era for me, sort of like, oh, this is not going to work. This guy's not good enough. This manager's not good enough. This team is never going to be good enough. To see him standing there, bittersweet, obviously, in a knee brace, to take the plaudits, having quite literally put his body on the line for Arsenal Football Club over the years, to the point where, it's damaged. You know, I'm not saying he'll never be able to play ever again or anything like that, but he has done himself some damage over the years in service of this football club to try and help us win games and to achieve what we want to achieve. So that was one. I also felt like for Saliba and Gabriel also, who've been really fundamental cornerstones of the project in terms of how we've been built defensively. For those two guys, you know, they're centre halves who are brilliant. They're a bit like not chalk and cheese, but you know, the two personalities complement each other very well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which I think has been really important. So for those two, you know, and you can see with Saliba how much it meant. What did he say when he signed a new contract? Like a week, or what was around the time he signed? We have to die on the pitch, you know, to make it happen. You know, which is metaphorical, obviously, but that's the kind of character that you're talking about. I also think. And I know some people are frustrated with him, and maybe because of the injuries, you know, patience is not always a virtue when it comes to injured players, and there isn't the patience for them to find their form again and find their rhythm again when they do return after injury or after like a period in which they've been injured. For Martin Odegaard as the captain to lift that trophy, to put himself in the conversation, or to be, you know, in the history books alongside some of our great captains, I think is wonderful, I have to say. They're obviously all very different. Patrick Vieira and Tony Adams, players who've lifted the Premier League in the era in which we live. But I'm really happy for Odegaard as well because, you know, over the years I've seen a player who has, in every game he's played for us, done his best. And the last 18 months have been very difficult for him in injury terms. But who, like Saliba, like Gabriel, like Ben White, like Saka, was at the heart of the development and progression of this Arsenal team from a team that was finishing 8th, then 5th, and then challenging for titles every season since. So I was really happy for Odegaard. Yeah,
same. I think that would have meant a huge deal to him personally. And he'll always be the guy in that picture. You know, he is the guy with his hands on the trophy, lifting it for Arsenal Football Club. And it was a nice touch as well that it was handed over to him by Emmanuel, who's a player for North London United, who are Arsenal's affiliate Down syndrome team, and he's been around the group a little bit. He did like a nice interview with Arteta a little while ago, and sort of welcomed the players to training in the past. And I think he'd actually been lined up to present the trophy previously, and sadly it didn't happen.
Right.
So very nice for him to be able to fulfill that yesterday.
Shall we do a couple of quickies before we go?
Yeah.
I did like this one from Buffalo Gooner, who asks, can James get a copy of the Spurs relegation article The Athletic ended up not using?
Yeah, I know. Well, look, let's hold on to it. You know, the great thing about so much of the content we've seen from Arsenal and others is that it's kind of been built up over the years. You know, we've had a lot of dry runs at this. So I would say just because it hasn't come out today, let's not rule out the possibility it could come out in the future.
I like this one as well from Mal. Did Arteta recover yet from James's vicious assault, or will we see Gabriel Heinze lead the team out in Budapest? I'm not quite sure that will happen.
I know. I might owe quite the apology if we find out Mikel was hospitalised.
With an actual broken back. Bergkamp's pilot, after all the pundits saying we could only win the title if we win away at the likes of City and Liverpool, is it weirdly satisfying that we won the league while losing at both?
Yeah, it is.
It is, isn't it?
I mean, look, I would have loved to win those games. Don't get me wrong. I mean, our big game record, as far as I'm aware, is not particularly impressive this season. You know, we didn't beat City. We didn't beat Liverpool. We're beaten at home by United. It was not necessarily a season in which we dominated those big games, but we picked up virtually every other point. So, they can. Well, I think they can fuck off, Andrew.
We'll add them to the big book of fuck offs, or the second
tome.
book. Yeah, it's like War and Peace at this point. It's going to be the biggest book of all time. All right, I think we should probably get this out there to everybody because it's a warm day. We should all celebrate the title win and the warmness of the day, and then we can start to look ahead to what's a huge game against PSG on Saturday in Budapest. So, unless there's anything that's you really have to get off your chest or off your mind between now and then, shall we leave it?
I think so. Yeah, let's get back to basking and look forward to what should be a brilliant weekend.
All right, to all of you listening, you are our champions. Thank you for being with us throughout this season. It's been a long and difficult road at times, but we ended up in the happy place, not the bad place. So let's all enjoy that. So again, thanks so much for downloading and for listening and subscribing and for being with us on Patreon and all the rest. For now, take it easy, folks, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.